Hello. As we know, we will discuss about philosophy of history. Now we will discuss introduction to the nature and scope of history. If we talk about nature and scope of history, the various field of study in history, there are various field of history in history. These include political history, social history, cultural history, economic history, regional history, and international history. Each field analyze past events and process and help understand their cause and effects. Studying each field help us get a comprehensive and detailed picture of past events and process. It helps us understand the causes and effects of various events and process. Studying various fields of history is important because it helps us get a comprehensive and detailed picture of the past event and process. If we talk about political history is the study of political events, leaders, and policies. It helps us understand the cause and effects of various political events and policies. Political history includes the history of various political events such as war, treaties, and governance system. It teaches us how various political events and policies affect society and culture. Studying political history also teaches us how to solve various political dimension and problem. It teaches us how to make better political decision for more society and country. Now we see social history, the study of development of society. Society, uh, sorry, social history is the study of development and various aspects of society. It helps us understand the structure of society, social classes, and social changes. Social history include the study of various social events such as mass movements, social reforms movements, and the struggle of different social classes. It teaches us how society has developed and faced various challenges. Studying history teaches us how to develop tolerance and respect for different social classes. It teaches us how to solve the problem of society. Now we see cultural history. Cultural history is the study of culture, art, and literature. It helps us understand the development of various culture and their expression. Cultural history include the study of various cultural events such as art, movements, literature works, and culture festivals. It teaches us how different culture have developed and create their identity. Studying culture history teaches us how to develop respect and tolerance for different culture. It teaches us how to preserve the develop our culture and art. Now we see economic history. Economic history is the study of economic activities, trade, and economic policies. It helps us understand the causes and effect of various economic events and process. Economic history include the history of various economic events such as trade, crisis, economic reforms, and economic policies. It teaches us how various economic events and policies affect society and culture. Studying economic history also teaches us how to solve various economic dilemmas and problems. It teaches us how to make better economic decisions for our society and country. Now we see regional history. Regional history is the study of different religion. It helps us understand the development, culture, and social structure of various religions. Religion history includes the study of various religion events such as regional conflicts, regional cooperation, and regional development. It teaches us how different religion and regions have developed and solved their social, economic, and cultural issues. Studying regional history teaches us how to develop tolerance and respect for different regions. It teaches us how to solve the problem of different regions. Now we see international history. International history is the study of international relation. It helps us understand the relationship, cooperation, and conflicts between different countries. International history includes the study of various international events such as war, treaties, and international organizations. It teaches us how various international events and policies affect different parts of the world. Studying international history also teaches us how to solve various international dilemmas and problems. It teaches us how to promote world peace and cooperation. Now we see religion and history. Religion and history are deeply connected. The historical history of history of religion help us understand the cause and effects of various religious events, movements, and policies. It teaches us how various religious events and policies affect society and culture. Studying religious history also teaches us how to solve various religious dilemmas and problems. It teaches us how to make better religion decision for society and country. Studying religious history is important because it helps us get a comprehensive and detailed picture of past religious event and process. Now we see science and history. The history of science is the study of scientific development achievement. It helps us understand the causes and effects of various scientific diversity, inventions, and policies. The history of science include the study of various scientific events such as discovery, research, and scientific policies. It teaches us how various scientific events and policies affect society and culture. Studying the history of science also teaches us how to solve various scientific dilemmas and problems. It teaches us how to make better scientific decisions for our society and country. History of art and literature. The history of art and literature is the study of artist, literature, and cultural expression. It helps us understand the cause and effect of various artist and literature events, movements, and policies. The history of art and literature include the study of various artists and literary events, such as movements, literary works, and cultural festivals. It teaches us how various artists and literary events and policies affect society and culture. Studying the history of art and literature also teaches us how to solve various artist and literature dilemmas and problems. Now we see historical methods. There are various methods of studying history. These include descriptive method, analytical method, comparative method, and critical method. Each method is used to study the analyze different historical events and process. The descriptive method is used to describe event and process. The analytical method is used to analyze the cause and effect of events. The comparative method is used to compare different events and process. The critical method is used to criticize and evaluate events and process. Historical methods help us get a comprehensive and detailed picture of parts, events, and processes. Now we see comparative history. Comparison of different society and culture. Comparative history is a study of comparison of different society and culture. It helps us understand the development, program, and solution of various societies and culture. Comparative history include study of comparison of different society and culture, their struggle and their solution. It teaches us how different society and culture have developed and solved their social, economic, cultural issues. Studying comparative history teaches us how to develop tolerance and respect for different societies and cultures. It teaches us how to solve problem of society. Now we see oral history. Oral history is the study of oral evidence. It provides important information about past events and processes. Oral evidence includes personal experience, stories, and folklore. Studying oral history help us evaluate the authenticity and reliability of past events and processes. It helps us get a comprehensive and detailed picture of past events and processes. Oral history help us analyze the causes of effects of various events. It teaches us what we can learn from past events and processes and how we can make better decision for. Now we see modern history. Modern history is the study of events and processes of modern era. It helps us understand the cause and effect of various modern events, monuments, movements, and policies. Modern history includes the study of various modern events such as World War, independence struggle, and social reforms movements. It teaches us how various modern events and policies affect society and culture. Studying modern history also teaches us how to solve various modern dilemmas and problems. It teaches us how to make better modern decisions for our society and country. Now we see history and media. History and media are deeply connected. Media is used to study the present history. The presentation of history in media is done in various ways, such as documentaries, film, news, and social media. Media is used to provide information about historical events and processes. It helps us get a comprehensive and detailed picture of past events and processes. The presentation of history is media is important because it helps us understand the cause and effect of various events and processes. It teaches us what we can learn from past events and process and how we make better decisions for the future. Now we see digital history. Digital history is the study of history in digital media. It provides important information about past events and process through various digital sources such as website, blogs, and social media. Studying digital history help us evaluate the authenticity and reliability of past event and process. It helps us get a comprehensive and detailed picture of past events and processes. Digital history help us analyze the cause and effect of various events. It teaches us what we can learn from past events and process and how we can make better decisions for the future. Historical research. Historical research is crucial for studying history. It provides important information about past events and process. Historical research include the study and evaluation of various source and event evidence. It helps us get a comprehensive and detailed picture of past events and process. Historical research helps us analyze the cause and effect of various events. It teaches us what we can learn from past event and process and how we can make better decision for the future. Historical research is important because it helps us get a comprehensive and detailed picture for past event and process. Now we see challenges of history. There are many challenges in studying history. These include evaluating authenticity and reliability of sources, analyzing the cause of effects of various events, and getting the comprehensive and detailed picture of past event and process. Studying history can be challenges because it requires the study of evolution of various sources and evidence. Studying history help us get a comprehensive and detailed picture of past events of process. It teaches us what we can learn from past event and process and how we can make better decision for the future. Now we see historical perspective. History can be viewed from various perspectives. These include political perspective, social perspective, economical perspective, cultural perspective, and religious perspective. Each perspective is used to study and analyze different historical events and processes. The political perspective is used to study political events and policies. The social perspective is used to study the development and structure of study. The economic perspective is used to study economic activities and policies. The cultural perspective is used to study culture and art, and religious perspective is used to study religious and events and policies. Now we see the relation between history and sociology. Sociology and history are deeply connected. Sociology is the science of the study of society, while history is the study of past events and process. Studying sociology and history help us understand the development and structure of society. Studying sociology and history help us understand the development, problem, and solution of various societies and culture. Studying sociology and history teaches us how to develop tolerance and respect for different societies and culture. It teaches us how to solve the problem of society. Now we see future of history. The future of history is important because it provides new direction of studying and analyze past event and process. The future of studying history will use new techniques and method for the study and evolution of various sources and evidence. It helps us get a comprehensive and detailed picture of past events and process. The future of history will help us analyze and cause and effects of various events and process. It will teach us what we can learn from past events and process and how we can make better decision for the future. Case study. A case study is the study of major historical events. It helps us understand the cause and effects of various events and process. A case study includes the study and analyze of a major historical events. It teaches us what mistake we made in past and what we can learn from them. A case study helps us get a comprehensive and detailed picture of various events and process. It teaches us what we can learn from past events and process and how we can make better decision for the future. Important historians Important historians play a crucial role in studying and analyze past events and process. These historians study and analyze the cause and effects of various events and process. The list of major historians include Herodotus, Ibn Khaldun, Lewis, Buffon, Enrolled, William Shakespeare, and on Jin. Their work and contribution are significant because they have helped getting a comprehensive and detailed picture of past events and process. Their work and contribution help us understand the cause and effects of various events and process. Some historical books. Important historical books are crucial source for studying and analyzing history. These books provide important information about past event and process. The list of important historical books include History of Phenomena, War, the Histories, the Mukaddam, the Rise of Fall and Roman Empire, History of Western Philosophy, and a pupil history of United States. Studying the analyze with books help us get a comprehensive and detailed picture of past events and process. If we talk about writing history, writing history is important because it helps us re-evaluate, rewrite past events and process. It helps us re-evaluate and authenticity and reliability of various events and process. Rewriting history help us get a comprehensive and detailed picture of past events and process. It helps us re-evaluate and the cause of effects of various events and process. Rewriting history is important because it helps us re-evaluate and rewrite past events and process. It teaches us what we can learn from the past event and process and how we can make better decision for the future. Now we see history and philosophical perspective. History and philosophical perspective are deeply connected. Studying history from a philosophical perspective help us understand the deep and fundamental cause of various event and process. It help us understand the moral and philosophical aspect of various event and process. The philosophical perspective of history help us critical and fundamentally evaluate past event and process. It helps us analyze the moral and philosophical aspect of various event and process. Studying history and philosophical perspective is important because it helps us critical and fundamental evaluate past event and process. Conclusion: studying history is important because it helps us understand past event and process. It teaches us what mistake we made in the past and what can we learn from them. Studying history helps us understand the development of society, culture and humanity. It helps us make better decisions for present and future. Studying history also help us the development moral and social values. It teaches us to get the comprehensive and detailed picture of various events and process and understand them. Studying history is important because it helps us get a comprehensive and detailed picture of past events and process. Thank you. As we know, we have already discussed about philosophy of history. अब हम यहाँ देखेंगे कि हिस्ट्री को जानने के कुछ सोर्सेज होते हैं, जैसे प्राइमरी सोर्सेज and secondary sources. If we talk about primary sources, so primary sources are originally documents or artifacts from the time being studied, such as letters, diaries, photographers, and official records. They provide direct evidence of history events. For example, Mahatma Gandhi letters and writings are primary sources that provide direct evidence of his thought and action during the Indian independence struggle. Primary sources are very important for historians because they are the direct witness of events and provide the most authentic information. By analyzing these sources, historians and create a more accurate and detailed picture of the past. Now we see secondary sources. Secondary sources are analyzed or interpretation of primary sources. Example include history books, articles, and documentaries that provide context and understanding of historical events. Secondary sources are the result of historians' work and provide a broad perspectives on past events. For instance, a book on the Indians' independence struggle that analyzes various primary sources is a secondary sources. Secondary sources are important for historians because they help understand the various interpretation and perspectives on past events. Now we see oral history. Oral history involves collecting and studying historical information from spoken accounts. It is especially useful for understanding culture and experiences that may not be well documented in written sources. For example, when studying rural life in India, oral history is very important because many events and practices are not well documented in written sources. Oral historians interview local people and record their experience, stories, and memories. This method allows us to hear the voice of people whose stories are often let out the mainstream of history. Now we see historiography. Historiography is the study of how history is written and interpreted. It examines different historians' perspectives, methodology, and the evolution of historical thought. For example, when looking at the history of Indian written in different periods, we find that the perspectives and interpretation of colonial historians during the independence movement, and modern historians can be different. Historiography help us understand that history is not just a compilation of events but also how historians select, present, and interpret events. If we talk about nature of history, the nature of history involves understanding it is a dynamic and interpretive discipline. History is not just about facts, it's about interpreting events and understanding their significance. For instance, the same historical events can be seen the interpreted different by various historians. The nature of history is also that it changes over time as new evidence and perspectives emerge. The interpretation of history is always influenced by the current context and the need and perspectives of society. Thus, history is a constantly involved discipline. History as a science. Some aspects of history are scientific, involving systematic collecting and analysis of data. However, unlike natural science, history also involves subjective interpretation. Historians analyze primary and secondary sources to draw conclusion. They examine and verify evidence, connect facts, and present conclusion. However, like science, history also verify its conclusion through testing and retesting. For example, archaeological evidence and documents are scientifically analyzed to ensure to accuracy of history. History as an art. History is also considered as art because it requires creativity in constructing and narrative past events. Historians must weave together evidence to tell a compelling story. For example, a historian must present information from various sources in a coherent and reliable narratives. This process takes the form of art because it involves choosing, interpreting, and presenting evidence to create a compelling story. Historians must also think about how their stories will impact readers and help them understand and related past events. Objectivity in history. Objectivity in history means striving to present an unbiased account of events, while complete objectivity in challenging. Historians aim to minimize personal biasness in their work. For instance, when studying a historian events, a historian would ensure that they analyze all relevant sources and present their conclusion without bias. Objectivity also means that historians should include their personal perspectives and views in their work minimally. This helps them present a more balanced or accurate picture of events. Subjectivity in history. Subjectivity in history acknowledges that historians' perspective and background can influence their interpretation. Different historians may interpret the same events in various ways. For example, an historian and British historian may have different perspective and interpretation of the events of the Indian independence struggle. Subjectivity also acknowledges that the interpretation of history can change over time with changing society needs and perspectives. Historians must recognize the impact of their personal perspective and appropriately include them in their work. If we talk about scope of history, the scope of history is a vast covering all aspects of human experience, including political, social, economic, cultural, and intellectual history. It span from ancient times to the present. For example, political history include the study of governance system, wars, and leaders, while social history include the study of the lives of ordinary people and the structure of society. Economic history study the development of trade, industry, and economic policies. Cultural history study art, literature, and religious practices, while intellectual history study the development of the ideas and philosophy. The broad scope make the study of history every very rich and diverse. Now we see political history. Political history focus on the study of government, system, political events, leaders, and ideologies. It examines how political power has been required, experience, and challenges. For example, Indian political history include the Mughal rule, British colonial period, and past independence politics. Political history also looks at how different ideologies such as democracy, socialism, and communism have shaped society. Furthermore, it studies various political movements and the revolution, such as the French Revolution, American Revolution, and Indian independence struggle. This study helps us understand how political events influence societal development. Now we see social history. Social history explore the lives of ordinary pupils, social structure, and institution. It examines issues such as family life, education, class, and gender rules. For example, the history of the caste system in India, the status of women, and the development of education are parts of social history. Social history also looks at how different social groups and classes have struggled for their rights and freedom. Over time, this study helps us understand how the structures and institutions of society change and how they affect pupils' lives. Economic history. Economic history study the development of economics, trade, industry, and impact of economic policies. It looks at how economic forces have shaped society. For example, studying the Industrial Revolution, which transformed a global economy, for the impact of globalization on today's economy is part of economic history. Economic history also look at how economic policies and trade agreements affect different social classes. Additionally, it study how the distribution of resources and method of production change over time. how these change affect societal development. Cultural history. Cultural history investigate cultural experiences such as art, literature, music, and religion. It explores how cultural practice and belief have evolved over time. For example, the development of Indian literature, the rise of various music genres, and changes in religious practices are parts of cultural history. Cultural history also look at how different cultural changes and interaction have influenced society. This society, this study helps us understand how culture is a vital part of human experience and how it evolves the change over time. Intellectual history. Intellectual history examines the development of ideas, philosophy, and intellectual movements. It looks at how thinkers and their works have influenced societies and historical events. For example, the ideas of thinkers such as Aristotle, Plato, and Confucius and their impact on their society are parts of intellectual history. Additionally, intellectual history look at how scientific discoveries and technology innovation have changed society, ideas and perspectives. This study helps us understand how ideas and knowledge evolve over time and how they contribute to societal development. Microhistory focus on small specific events or individual to gain detailed insight into larger historical phenomena. It often reveals the impact of broader historical force on local levels. For example, by studying the life story of a small village, we can understand how broader social, economic, and political forces affect the local level. Microhistory helps understand broader historical process through individual experience and events. This method helps us understand how history manifests in small, everyday life events beyond just major events and process. Now we see macro history. Macro history look at large scale historical process and trends. It examines long term pattern and development across civilization and eras. For example, the development of human civilization, major events of different eras, and the study of global history are parts of microhistory. Macrohistory also look at the different civilization influence each other through contact and exchange. This study help us understand how large historical process and trend change over time and how they affect societies and culture. Chronological chronology in history. Chronology is the arrangement of events in their order of occurrence. It helps in understanding the essence and cause and effect relationship between historical events. For example, we look at the chronology of World War II. We can understand how different events are connected and how they affect the outcome of the war. Chronology helps historians study and interpret events in a systematic and logical manner. It also shows us how different events influence each other over time, how they are part of broader historical process. Thematic history. Thematic history focus on specific themes or topics such as war, migration, or technology across different periods and regions. It allows for the deeper understanding of particular issues. For example, we have studied the themes of war. We can examine the causes, process, and impact of war in different eras and culture. Similarly, we study migration. We can see how and why people migrate at different times and places, and its impact on societies. Thematic history helps us understand how specific issues and processes change over time and place and their broader historical context. Comparative history involves comparing similar events or development in different culture or time periods. It helps identify patterns and difference in historical process. For example, we have compare the agriculture revolution in different society. We can see how and why different society development agriculture and its impact on their society. Comparative history also look at how different society face similar problems and what their solution were. The method this method help us understand how different culture and societies have similarities and difference and how their historical development occurs. Regional history study specific geographical areas such as countries, cities, or religion. For example, studying the history of different states and regions in India is important because each region has its unique history and development. Regional history also looks at how local events and processes are connected to broader national and global events. This study helps us understand how local and regional history is part of the broader historical context and its significance. Now we see world history. World history examines global processes and interaction between different societies. It looks at how civilization have influenced each other through conquest and cultural exchange. For example, studying the trade and cultural exchange between Asia and Europe through the Silk Route is part of world history. World history also look at how global conflicts such as World War and global movements such as anti-colonial movements have influenced different societies. This study help us understand how global process and events contribute to the development of various culture and societies. Historical periods. History is often divided into periods such as ancient, medieval, modern to organize and study events systematically. Each period has distinct characteristics and development. For example, in the ancient period, we study ancient civilizations such as Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Harappan civilization. In the medieval period, we study feudalism, religious conflict, and medieval society. In the modern period, we study industrial revolution, colonialism, and rise of the modern national state. The division of historical periods help us better understand and systematically study past events and process. Now we see prehistory. Prehistory refers to the time before written records. It is studied through archaeological, anthropology, and other science that analyze artifacts, fossils, and other physical evidence. For example, studying the tools, painting, and remains of ancient humans in part of prehistory. Prehistory help us understand how human society development and how early human interacted with their environment. This study also show how human society gradually evolved towards agriculture, permanent settlement, and complex society. The study of prehistory provide us with important information about the earlier origin and development of humanity. Ancient history covers early civilizations such as Mesopotamia. If we talk about Mesopotamia means अगर हम मेसोपोटामिया की बात करते हैं तो मेसोपोटामिया का हिंदी में अर्थ होता है दो नदियों के बीच का क्षेत्र. जैसे कि दो नदी हैं जिसको हम दजला और फरात कहते हैं, तो उनके बीच के पूरे एरिया को हम मेसोपोटामिया कहते हैं। इसी तरीके से इजिप्ट, ग्रीस एंड रोम, इट एग्जामिन द डेवलपमेंट ऑफ राइटिंग स्टेट एंड मेजर कल्चर एंड टेक्नोलॉजिकल एडवांसमेंट। फॉर एग्जाम्पल, द pyramid ऑफ इजिप्ट, द writing system of Mesopotamia, and Greek philosophy are major theme and of ancient history. Ancient history also look at how different civilizations interacted and exchanged with each other and how they influence each other. This study helps us understand how early human society laid the foundation of complex and organized societies and how their achievement contribute to the development of modern civilization. Now we see medieval history. Medieval history span roughly through the 5th and 15th century. It includes a study of feudalism, the rise of church, crusade, and formation of early nation state. For example, the feudal system in Europe, the crusade and medieval religious conflict are part of medieval history. Medieval history also look at how society developed their social, political, and economic structure and how they faced their challenges. This study help us understand how medieval society laid the foundation of modern nation state and institution and how their development influenced modern history. Modern history being around the 16th century and includes the Renaissance, Enlightenment, industrialization, and major political revolution. It examines the development of modern world. For example, the rise of Renaissance in Europe, the scientific revolution, and the industrial revolution are part of modern history. Modern history also look at how colonialism, World War, and independence movement shaped modern nation, state, and international relations. This study helped us understand how modern societies and institutions develop and how they influence the present global scenario. Now we see contemporary history. Contemporary history refer to the study of recent events, typically from the 20th century to the present. It cover major global conflict, technology, advancement, and ongoing social changes. For example, the First and Second World War are Cold War and globalization are parts of the contemporary history. Contemporary history also looks at how modern society have faced and adapt to technology, innovation, social movement, and political changes. This study help us understand how current events and processes are part of the broader historical context and how they will influence the future. Now we see sources of history. Historical sources include written documents, oral documents, physical artifacts, and visual material. These sources are used to construct and interpret past events. For example, artifacts obtained from archaeological excavation, historical documents such as government record and personal letter, and photograph and drawing are the import source of historians. By analyzing this source, historian can create an accurate and detailed picture of the past. The use of historical sources ensure that the study of history is accurate to authentic and help us better understand past event and process. Archives and libraries are essential for preserving historical documents and records. They provide valuable resources for researchers and historians to study and analyze the past. For example, documents and books stored in national archive and libraries provide importance information to historians. These institutions collect or preserve historical document, letters, photograph, and other materials that are the essential for study of history. Archive and libraries also provide a necessary tools and facilities for the historical research. making the study and analyze the history more effective. Now we see museums and monuments. Museums and monuments preserve the display artifacts and objects of historical significance. They play a crucial role in educating the public about history and heritage. For example, nation museum, war memorials, and historic sites provide important information about past events, and individual museums and monuments not only display historical artifacts but also educate the public about history through educational program, exhibition, and lecture. This helps us understand and respect our culture heritage. Digital history. Digital history use technology to study and present historical information online, archives, database, and virtual have made history more accessible to a broader audience. For example, digitalization of historical documents of digital platform and online museum tours have made of the study of history more accessible and engaging. Digital history l- also look at how technology innovation have transformed historical research and teaching. Additionally, digital history has provided researchers with more data and tools, allowing them to conduct more accurate and detailed study. The study of digital history help us understand how technology has changed the study of presentation of history and how it may continue to evolve the future. Historical interpretation involves analyzing audience and forming narratives about the past. The different historians may interpret the same events differently based on their perspective and methodologies. For example, the events of the Indian independence struggle can be interpreted the different ways by different historians. Historical interpretation also looks at how different sources and evidence are combined to create a coherent narrative. This process can vary based on the analytical skill and perspective of historians. The study of historical interpretation help us understand how past events are understood and presented and how different perspectives and methodologies influence the interpretation of history. Debates in history. History often involves debates and different viewpoints. Historians may disagree on interpretation, cause of events, and the significance of historical developments. For example, different historians may present different interpretation of the causes of consequence of World War First and Second. Database debates in history also look at how different societies and culture remember the interrupt past events. This study help us understand how different perspectives and whys influence the interpretation of history and how debate and disagreement are integral part of historical study. The study of debates in history help us understand how different perspective and methodology influence the interpretation and presentation of historical events. Now we see ethical issues in history. Ethical issues in history include the responsibility to accurately present the past, the respect for cultural accurately represent the past, respect the cultural heritage, and the ethic use the historical evidence. Historians must negative these challenges carefully. For example, when study historical events, historians must ensure that the present their conclusion accurately and impartially. Ethical issues also look at how historians need to minimize personal and cultural bias in their research. Additionally, historians must ensure that they respect and preserve culture and historical heritage in their work. The study of ethical issues in history help us understand how historians' ethical responsibility and impact of their work influence historical study and presentation. Now we see the future of history. The future of history involves embracing new technology, methodology, and perspective. It includes the ongoing effort of make history relevant and engaging for future generation. For example, digital history and online platform are transforming the study and presentation of history. In the future, historians and researchers will use new technologies such as artificial intelligence and big data to analyze and interpret historians' evidence. Additionally, the future of history look at how historians will expand their work in include perspective and experiences of various scientists and cultures. The future of history help us understand how innovation and change are important in the study and presentation of history and how they can continue to evolve in the future. Conclusion: the study of history is vital for understanding our past, present, and future. It enriches our knowledge, foster critical thinking, and help us navigate the complexity of the modern world. Studying history teaches us how past events and process influence the present and how they will shape the future. The study helps us understand our society, roots, achievement, and challenges. Studying history also teaches us how different society and culture have evolved the changed over time and how they have learned and exchanged with each other. In conclusion, studying history is not just about understanding the past, but also about helping us better understand and manage present and future. Thank you. होप आपको अच्छा लगा होगा और इसी तरीके के वीडियो हम अपलोड करते रहेंगे।